Coming up on Citrus TV News, gubernatorial candidate Cynthia Nixon made a stop in Syracuse today. Find out who she met with.
And New York City police shot a man who they believed had a gun. We have the details on what led to the shooting.
Plus, Oklahoma teachers continue marching in protest. Citrus TV News starts right now.
Citrus TV News live at 6 starts with breaking news.
Our top story tonight, a 15-year-old has been charged with making a terroristic threat in North Syracuse. Hello, I'm Jack Watson.
And I'm Conor Wight. A school resource officer at North Syracuse Junior High School received a tip this morning from students that a classmate made threats against members of the school. We will update you to any new information in the story. And the Trump administration announced yesterday that it will send National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border to combat border crossings.
In a tweet this morning, the president said that the amount of border crossings is still unacceptable. Political analyst Brandon Ross is in studio to discuss the details of the plan.
Yeah, guys, the move is intended to be part of the administration's larger crackdown on illegal immigration. Trump officials disclosed very few specifics about the plan. We do know that Trump hopes to send between 2,000 and 4,000 troops, but the length of their deployment and their exact responsibilities are among the things that are still unclear. That's because all of these things are dependent on cooperation from the governors of the border states. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott has already applauded the plan, saying that it reinforces the state's longstanding commitment to securing its border and upholding the rule of law. Meanwhile, California was non-committal to the plan. A spokesman for the California National Guard said the state will review the administration's request to determine how it could best be of assistance. The California National Guard already has 55 personnel at the border supporting anti-drug operations. It's also worth noting that Democrat Governor Jerry Brown has been one of the president's fiercest critics, and the possibility exists that since the government report to the California governor, Brown could simply reject Trump's request. The long-term goal of the plan is for the National Guard to assist Border Patrol until Congress passes laws addressing what the administration sees as loopholes in immigration enforcement. But even with National Guard troops at the border, it is unlikely those troops will have any direct contact with immigrants.
Political analyst Brandon Ross, thanks so much for being with us. Now, this seems like a bit of a unique move from the president. Is there any precedent for something like this? Actually,
yes. Both of the last two presidents have made similar moves. George W. Bush sent troops to the border in 2006. Interestingly enough, then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger did exactly what some people are expecting Governor Jerry Brown to do, and he rejected W. Bush's request. And back in 2010, even President Obama sent troops to the border, mainly to help with surveillance.
Well,
Brandon, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yesterday, the SU Graduate Student Organization passed a resolution to switch to a less expensive graduate employee health care plan. Graduate students will have platinum coverage, which covers 90% of medical expenses. According to reports, a single graduate assistant would have to pay $500 for the plan. This decision comes after months of debate and tension between graduate students. And Chancellor Ken Syverud named former Maxwell Dean and current SU professor John Palmer the new Syracuse University Mace Bearer. The former Mace Bearer retired from the role in August 2017. Palmer will be officially appointed to the position during the One University Award ceremony in Hendricks Chapel on April 20th. The chapter mace is designed to symbolize authority and integrity. And a presentation about rezoning possibilities in Syracuse took place yesterday night. Reporter Sunny Balkin went to Henninger High School to find out how this might affect the area surrounding Syracuse University.
A presentation in a series of public meetings about the third draft of Rezone Syracuse took place last night at Henninger High School. This gave the public a chance to learn about the new zoning ordinance that may be passed in the coming months. If passed, one of the goals of the new rezoning plan is to create more efficient land usage. The Rezone Syracuse plan has classified some areas around the city from MX1 to MX5, based on factors like the density of population and what can be built. Zoning Administrator Heather Lamondola tells us what this means for building on MX1 classified places like Euclid Avenue in the future.
The character area that correlates to MX1 was called Adaptive Mansion Corridor. So if you kind of think about that in your mind, you're thinking about larger residential structures with bigger front yards, and they have been mainly used for residential, but now this MX1 is encouraging small-scale, low-intense retail and restaurant use.
This means places like Euclid Avenue may start to look more and more like Westcott Avenue, with places like Boom Babies and Reese's popping up all over. Lamondola says the land usage ordinance are outdated and the changes brought with MX1 zoned areas are necessary to keep up with the times.
You know, we're not up to date with some of the land uses that are coming to fruition around the state, things like microbreweries and doggy daycare. So we try to incorporate those into the zoning ordinance, allow them as uses, enumerate them as uses, and also define them. So there are some things lacking in the current ordinance that we needed to define and actually enumerate. So the MX1 district hopefully will encourage that type of investment while protecting the neighborhood at the same time.
Comments, concerns, and suggestions on the Rezone Syracuse plan are due by April 27, 2018. You can submit these at rezone.syracuse@syr.gov.net. For Citrus TV News, I'm Sunny Balkin.
If Rezone Syracuse passes, areas like Euclid Avenue could see changes within the next few years.
And according to reports, a 1-year-old infant has died following a house fire early this morning. 3 others, including the infant's mother, are reported to be in critical condition. The Syracuse Fire Department was called to a house on Fitch Street just after 3 a.m. 5 people were in the house when the fire broke out. A firefighter was also taken to a hospital for minor injuries. It is unclear what caused the fire.
And Cynthia Nixon visited Syracuse earlier today, making this her first stop in the city since announcing her run for governor. Nixon's campaign says she met with about 20 progressive activists in Syracuse's Southwest Community Center. The meeting included local advocates for housing, health care, and immigration rights. Nixon previously visited Central New York in February before she announced her candidacy.
And today is the final day of Syracuse's Civilian Police Academy. Citrus TV reporter Adam Unger was there right in the middle of the discussion and the action.
On April 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the Syracuse Police Department held its 3rd Civilian Police Academy. The series includes lectures, discussions, and scenarios. But Detective Mark Russin says the most important part of the program isn't necessarily pre-scheduled.
Those offline conversations, I think, are the most important for several reasons. One, it provides some insights as to what happened during the scenario, but then also it provides an opportunity for a one-on-one conversation between a police officer and a community member, and that helps to facilitate dialogue and relationship building.
Now, I took part in one of their scenarios, a hand-to-hand exhaustion exercise, but let's check in on me later. Another scenario involved the staging of a peaceful protest, and Nidesia Hernandez realized what it's like to walk in the shoes of a police officer.
I had a lot of background noise, so I had people in my environment, in my personal space while I'm on the ground, so I already feel uncomfortable because I'm not being able to protect myself because I'm on the ground with her. It's like I have to stay safe and I have all this background noise. So as a police officer, I can see a lot of stress. I can see a lot of thinking without thinking.
Everything that happened here on the mat was even harder than it looked, but that's okay, because the exercises and the scenarios are all meant for one big improvement.
This is a proactive approach, but the Civilian Academy is only one of many programs that is designed to be proactive in building relationship, trust, confidence, legitimacy within the police department.
I hope to continue to learn that it's not just about the cops pulling out the guns and killing. It's all the stuff that leaded up to it. It's the things that we didn't see. It's the mind capacity that we're not in their minds. And we don't know the situation.
Russin says he hopes to host more civilian police academies in the future. And how did I end up doing on the mat? Not too great. I'm Adam Unger, Citrus TV.
Thanks, Adam. The New York Police Department has released surveillance video of a man who was fatally shot by police. The video shows Sahid Vessel pointing a silver object at several residents. Officers were called to the scene after receiving several 911 calls of a man aiming an object at people in Brooklyn. Police Chief of Department Terrence Monahan says officers believe the object was a gun.
The suspect then took a two-handed shooting stance and pointed an object at the approaching officers, 2 of whom were in uniform. This is a photo that we took from across the street, seconds before the officers discharged, with the man in a stance pointing in the direction of where the officers were coming from.
Well, Jack, today was April 5th, and we had snow, which, although April 1st was, days ago, it feels like an extended April Fool's joke.
I'm not as happy about it, especially considering my birthday's in a couple of days. Hopefully, weather anchor Nicole Weaving has some good answers for us. Nicole?
Well, sorry to burst your bubble, guys, but this is not the last snow that we'll be seeing, even though, yes, it is actually spring now. But I just want to take a look back at the weather we saw yesterday real fast, because it was really all over the place with plummeting temperatures and winds that were between 35 miles to 113 miles per hour in some areas, up to 10,000 people lost power, and still many are without that. And even a man in Jefferson County was killed when his sugar shack blew over from how heavy those winds were yesterday. But right now, it's right around... having a couple technical difficulties, but right now it's right around the 32 degrees outside, and it really feels though colder, closer to 24 degrees because there's a lot of wind right now. But as we take a look at the rest of our forecast through the rest of this week, really could see some more wind coming up, but I'll tell you more in my full weather forecast.
Nicole, coming up, find out why Howard University students are on their 7th day of protests.
And Catalan independence leader Carles Puigdemont faces charges in Germany. Find out what Germany plans to do with him. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl.
Some breaking news out of Washington. President Trump said that he was not aware of a $130,000 payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels in exchange for her silence. This is the first time the president has acknowledged the alleged sexual affair.
When asked why his lawyer made the payment, President Trump said, quote, "You'll have to ask Michael Cohen, who is his lawyer." The president said he does not know where the money came from and whether there was a fund set up for his lawyer. And protests at Howard University are currently in their 7th day. Demonstrators are sitting in at the administration building to protest misappropriated financial aid funds.
About a week ago, an auditor discovered that university employees were implicated in financial misconduct. The report alleges employees received more money in grants and tuition remission than their education costs. The protest is led by the student group HU Resist.
Students gave the administration 9 demands, of which the university board only agreed to 1. Several hundred students plan to occupy the building until all 9 of those demands are met.
And Oklahoma teachers continue their 110-mile march from Tulsa to the state capitol. The teachers are marching for increased classroom funds, better learning conditions, and higher wages.
The teacher walkouts have caused hundreds of school closings and displaced over 700,000 students. State Governor Mary Fallin has compared strikers to teenagers wanting a better car.
The march is expected to continue through Sunday.
And President Donald Trump's attorney is requesting an interim stay in a defamation case with a former Apprentice star.
The move would suspend the Summer Zervos case temporarily until a decision is made on the appeal. Under the current timeline, the case is expected to be heard in September.
Trump's team attempted unsuccessfully to dismiss the case last December.
And former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers compared President Trump to former Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Summers believes President Donald Trump should not be attacking Amazon.
Amazon founder and CEO Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, which President Trump claimed is a lobbying group for Amazon. The president's recent tweets about Amazon contain misleading information about the company's tax payments.
And a North German court ruled to release Catalan President Carles Puigdemont today on €75,000 bail. Puigdemont was arrested in late March after fleeing Spain to avoid charges when the Catalan parliament declared independence.
The court is still debating if Puigdemont will be extradited from Germany for misuse of public funds. And Bollywood superstar Salman Khan could spend 5 years in prison after being convicted of illegal poaching. The case alleges Khan shot 2 antelopes in 1998.
An urgent hearing will be heard tomorrow morning in a higher court. He previously pleaded not guilty, but the case has dragged on in Indian courts for more than a decade.
Forbes ranked Khan in the top 75 of the world's highest paid celebrities last year.
And coming up after the break, a Ford vehicle failed a major safety test. More details on that.
And forecasters predict what this hurricane season will look like. Our weather anchor Nicole Weaving has more. Stay with us.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day I found out I had something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
From the Citrus TV Weather Center, this is SU's most accurate weather forecast.
And as I mentioned, it's 32 degrees right now here in Syracuse, and we're seeing pretty similar temperatures throughout most of upstate New York. The only area we're seeing slightly chillier temperatures is over in Rochester at 29. But as temperatures tonight dropping again down to a low of 24, and some snow flurries are going to be moving in with still some higher winds, 15 to 20 miles per hour. So as we take a look at our Doppler radar, we see some snow stagnating, pretty dry now, but by about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, even slightly earlier in these wee hours of the morning, we could see some snow moving in. Then as the temperature starts to warm up, it will turn into rain later tomorrow. So when you wake up in the morning, it'll be about 31 degrees, and it'll start to warm up throughout the rest of the day. The warmest parts of the day actually coming later, as you see, 6 p.m., 45 degrees. And then that snow, as I mentioned, it'll start to snow in the morning, so expect some more on the ground. You might need your winter coat then because those temperatures are still pretty cold. Turn into rain later tomorrow night, and then clear up by the end of the night. And then as we take a look at our 5-day forecast, I hope you guys enjoyed the sun today because we're really not going to be seeing it much more beyond that. As I mentioned, some snow, rain, but those higher temperatures even with 48. Then it'll be cloudy. We'll see some more snow move in on Sunday because of those cooler temperatures in the 33 area. And then on Monday and Tuesday, once again, cloudier temperatures right around 44 as those high go SU, but warmer temperatures at least slightly. But there'll still be a lot of wind just like we saw yesterday, but not definitely in the 100 mile per hour range. And the Los Angeles residents felt the tremor of a 5.3 magnitude earthquake this afternoon at the Channel Islands. The quake occurred just before 3:30 p.m., 41 miles off the coast of California. And there was no immediate reports of injury or damage, and the National Weather Service declared that there was no threat of a tsunami. And more crazy weather, a volcano in southwestern Japan erupted early this morning. The Japan Meteorology Agency says the ash from the volcano was about 5,000 meters high. The agency restricted access to the mountain and issued warnings against flying rocks within 2 miles of the volcano. This explosion comes about a month after the volcano first exploded in March for the first time in 7 years. And the 2018 hurricane season could be almost as busy, but not as severe as the 2017 season. Colorado State University forecasters expect an above-average season with 14 named storms in the Atlantic Ocean so far. 7 of those storms are expected to become hurricanes. This forecast is quieter than 2017, which had 17 storms and 10 hurricanes.
Thanks, Nicole. NASA has announced it will develop an aircraft that can break the sound barrier. Supersonic flight is currently restricted over land due to noise concerns, but NASA is designing the X-plane to produce sonic booms that are barely audible from the ground. NASA is hoping the supersonic X-plane could be for commercial passenger use. NASA has given almost $250 million to an aerospace company to build and test the aircraft by the end of 2021.
And the Ford Escape SUV has failed the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's passenger crash test. The SUV struck a barrier at 40 miles per hour on the passenger side. As you can see, the airbags did not deploy, and the passenger side was crushed more severely than the other vehicles tested. The Ford Escape was the only small SUV in a group of 7 that failed the test.
Coming up in sports, it's the most wonderful time of the year for golf fans. I've got an update on the Masters for you. Plus, what is O'Shea Brissett saying about the NBA draft? Stick around to find out. We'll be right back.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. That no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Superheroes? Just 4 brothers who hate bullies and love this city. Gear up, guys.
And now, your Citrus TV Sports Report.
Welcome back to Citrus TV News Live at 6. I'm JD Raucci with sports. I know that this might look like a dream to some in central New York because of all the snow and cold we've had lately, but don't let your eyes deceive you. This is a golf club, and there is some pretty important golf to be played today. First full weekend in April, so that means the Masters down in Augusta, Georgia, and it's already been a very full day of action. Looking at the scoreboard now, of course, all eyes on Tiger Woods playing in his first Masters since 2015, and it was a bit of an up-and-down day for Tiger. He finished the first round with a 1 over 73 that has him tied for 42nd, I should say. Top of the leaderboard, a bit of a newcomer, Tony Finau of the United States at 4 under. Keep in mind, Finau had to pop his own ankle back into place yesterday after dislocating it in the par 3 contest. Below him, 6 tied at 3 under, including Jordan Spieth, who has made a late day run toward the top of the leaderboard. Back in the cold north, though, SU lacrosse is coming off a win over rival Hobart on Tuesday night, and now the attention turns toward another Central New York rival in Cornell. The Big Red is currently ranked 10th in the country, and a big part of that is sophomore attack Jeff Teat, who is 3rd in the country in points per game, and John Desko knows that stopping a guy like Teat is going to be crucial to topping the Big Red.
He is really good. You know, there is no weakness in his game, and he's got eyes in the back of his head. And I think what I see is, you know, when he has the ball in his stick, the players work really hard to get open for him. I think he's got, 28 assists or something like that. And whenever you're playing with a player like that, you know that if you get open, you're going to get the ball in your stick, and he's going to give you that opportunity. So the guys work hard off the ball, and he's got it.
Meanwhile, the women's lacrosse team just finished its game down at Loyola in Baltimore, Maryland. A huge win for Syracuse. The number 18 Orange topped the number 6 Loyola Greyhounds 12-11 in overtime. Emily Harris-Chuck scored the game winner for Syracuse. That was her 6th goal on the day. She had 8 points total. And for the leading scorer on this Syracuse women's lacrosse team, an absolutely masterful performance for Emily Harris-Chuck, and a fantastic win for Syracuse, who coming into the game had lost 3 of their last 4. And in some potentially positive news for SU basketball, O'Shea Brissett told KCU Radio and Vancouver that he is leaning toward coming back to school, saying, quote, "I feel like another year of development will really help me out. There's not any rush to get into the league just yet. There's nothing that I have to do right now. I feel like another year to find myself and develop the skills I showed last year will really help my stock increase," unquote. Brissett, of course, one of the star players on this year's team, averaging just about 15 points and 9 rebounds a game. In baseball, the Yankees look to continue their hot start to the season tonight against the Orioles. After splitting a 4-game set with the Blue Jays to open the season, the Yanks swept 2 from the Rays and continue that AL East homestand tonight when they welcome Baltimore to the Bronx. Looking back at when these two teams matched up last year, New York held a slight 12-7 advantage, including 8-2 at Yankee Stadium. On the other side of Big Apple baseball, the Mets are also off to a scorching start in 2018, and it got a bit hotter today. New York an 8-2 win over the Nationals earlier this afternoon. Jay Bruce cranked a grand slam for the Mets, but that wasn't the biggest explosion of the game. Former Syracuse Chief Trey Turner, who now plays for the Nats, was ejected for arguing balls and strikes. Fellow former Chief Bryce Harper went 0 for 3.
JD, as always, thank you. We'll be right back.
Coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay. Yeah.
Hey Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Some breaking news for the end of the show. Syracuse.com just released a report that a Syracuse student was deported back to China by federal agents on March 20th, right after spring break.
The student had stockpiled a gun, ammunition, and other gun accessories in his downtown apartment. He told friends he, quote, might use the gun to cause trouble. The shooting was averted due to help from a gun store owner in Nelson and a maintenance worker in the student's apartment. We will update you on any new information in the story.
For all of us here at Citrus TV, have a good night.